everyone, it's Jessica Dybzinski. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm doing a mystery envelope challenge with my friends, and this month the envelope was sent out by Dawn. She really kept it quite simple for us. She sent a couple of 3x4 pieces of paper from the Close to My Heart Hello Darling paper collection. I just love these, as well as a piece of silver shimmer trim. And so I've got a sampling here of all of the papers. Her rules were pretty easy. We just had to include some element of mixed media somehow, some way. And so I pulled out my sapphire shimmer brush and white gloss spray. I thought maybe I would do some splatters. She said that that would count. And then I prepped some photos here of my kids from the 4th of July parade. And then I've also prepared this piece of sapphire cardstock. So I used my Cricut to cut a couple of stars in it, and I just used the stars that were in the basic shapes available in Design Space. My thought was that I would back the stars with those different pieces of pattern paper that she sent. And then I also used the offset feature in Design Space to cut one star just a little bit bigger than the ones that are cut into my paper. And I did that not for the star itself, but because I wanted to make a stencil where I could draw some lines for myself and add a little bit of stitching around the outside of the stars. So that's the idea that I have rattling around in my brain right now. I am working off of a pattern in one of my Make It From Your Heart volume books. I don't remember which volume it was, but it did call for 2 pieces of paper up here. So I went ahead and cut those because she said we could bring in some bigger pieces of that same paper pack. But when I put my photos on, I thought maybe it was a little bit too busy, too much, because I am going to have those pattern papers down in the stars as well. So I found a piece of Bluebell cardstock, which is a retired color, and I thought maybe I would just use that instead and perhaps put a little bit of stenciling on it just to add some extra interest. So this is a stencil that I haven't played with yet. I'm really excited. It's from the Dream Maker collection, and I thought maybe I would do this grid one and just kind of put a little bit of stenciling peeking out behind my photos. So again, that's the plan as of right now, and we will kind of see where this layout goes. All right, so to get things started, I am going to back these stars with that pattern paper, and I figured I could probably get two stars backed out of one 3x4 piece of paper, but I wasn't sure if I would be able to do that without kind of seeing first where they would go. So I just used the cutouts from the negative space and kind of used it to hold in place and cut my piece of paper there, and that way I know that will definitely fit behind a star. And then I thought, well, no need to do that again with the stars. I'll just kind of hold up my next piece of paper and cut along that same little line. And so that's pretty much what I did for all of my pattern pieces here. Now, I didn't use every single one. Like I didn't use the floral and a couple of the other pieces. I think the big stripes I didn't use. But I did use all of the ones that were especially patriotic because my layout is going to be from a 4th of July parade. So I'm just getting that last one covered here. And I didn't really care too much. Some of the patterns had like a direction to them as far as stripes, and I didn't really care about that. I just kind of wanted it to be, just sort of fun and whimsical. So I didn't worry too much about trying to get those lined up straight, like on those blue stars there. Okay, so I'm definitely going to go with this Bluebell piece of paper here instead of the 2 pattern papers. I think that just makes it a little bit easier to look at. It was definitely way too busy with those other 2 pattern papers. So, all right, that's the direction I'm going in. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do my stitching first. So I'm going to grab that little stencil that I made and hold it over top of that star until I can see that I have an even margin all the way around. And I'm going to draw a line with my pencil. So I'll go around and do this with all 6 of the stars. And basically, I'm just giving myself a guideline of where to punch the holes and do the stitching. I think this layout would have come together a whole lot faster if it hadn't been for the stitching part of it. It did take me about an hour to stitch it all, but I think the end result was worth it. And I do enjoy so much stitching on my paper project, so it wasn't really a big deal. All right, so I'm just punching I did a hole in the corners and also in the points of each of the star. And then I figured where the halfway point was, and then again halfway between that part. So that way I kept an even number of holes all the way around the stars. So you can see here how that looks once I've got it all punched out. And then I thought, before I put my thread in that, I'm going to go ahead and do the splatters now because I don't know if I want to have some of that gloss spray sitting on top of my embroidery thread. So this is just some Dina Wakley white gloss spray. And honestly, I almost never spray it. I usually just splatter it. I just open it up and take that little top part and I tap against it with something and then it creates drops. I did get a little bit carried away and I thought, oh no, maybe this is too much. But I think in the end, it ends up working out. They just kind of look like extra little stars, just little white stars, kind of little drops and splatters all over the place. I'm not worried too much about the top part of the page because again, that's going to get covered with that other piece of cardstock. So the cool thing about gloss spray is that it does dry fairly quickly, but I got a couple of big globs on there. So I was glad that I did it in this order because I was able to turn to my stenciling and give it a few minutes to dry. Okay, so spoiler, I don't actually end up using this after I was all done stenciling it. I didn't really like it. It just didn't kind of fit with the rest of the page, but I did keep it in here just to kind of show that this is another idea of something easy that you can do if you're getting into some mixed media. I know when I hear the term mixed media, sometimes that seems a little bit complicated or, like there's a lot to it, but really it could be anything. It could just be splatters or stenciling or simple, quick little things like that. Just those little touches that kind of add something fun to your layout. So it didn't end up working for my photos here when I put it all back together. I didn't really like it, but yeah, it's something simple that I like to do on a lot of other projects. So those are all dry. And I was like, nope, I don't like it. So I'm just going to flip it over and use the lighter side of the cardstock instead. I went ahead and matted my 3 photos on a piece of sapphire cardstock, and I liked that much better too. I thought it helped kind of stand out. And that way, since I didn't have the stenciling, there was still a little something else going on up there. So I thought that worked out well. So I'll just go ahead and get this adhered to the top. And then I'll go ahead and put my photos down. So these are some pictures from a couple of years ago when we were up in the UP of Northern Michigan. That's where we are always like to go for the 4th of July. My family has a cabin up there, and we always say that this is the best 4th of July parade in all of the country because it's like really such a small town affair. And so, like all the fire trucks and ambulances and things like that for counties around all come together, and I don't know, it's just a lot of fun. It's like short and sweet, but still like such a great parade, and we get lots of candy and things like that because there aren't a lot of people up there. All right, so I'm going to take one of those leftover pieces of paper that Dawn sent and cut it in half, and I'm going to add it to either side so it looks like a longer strip. I thought that would be fun. I almost cut a dovetail into it, and then at the last minute I decided not to. I do also have those blue stars from cutting out my original paper, but I try really hard throughout the course of putting this layout together to add them somewhere, but I thought it was maybe too many stars. I was like, there are enough stars already on this page, but I try a bunch of times to use them. All right, here is the beauty of using a T-square ruler with the Versamat. Since that is not one big long piece, but 2 separate ones, it is very simple just to make sure that I have them in exactly the same spot on either side of my row of photos. I just kind of measured about where I wanted it to be, and then I can line it up and also put it on straight. And that way it's in exactly the same spot on either side. All right, I still had that piece of silver shimmer trim that Dawn sent, so I measured how long it was, and it was just short of 6 inches. And so I cut it in half, and I thought that I would put it with those red pieces on either side of my photos. But then I realized, well, it was a little bit short of 6, so that means that in half is not quite 3 inches, and that looked a little silly over there. So I'm going to set that to the side for now, but I will find a way to use that later. So that idea, I'm going to put that on hold. I tried moving it around, but it didn't quite work. Okay, so I'm going to turn to the title. Here's my kitten Petunia, who decided she wanted to get involved. She was very interested in my die cutting machine. I was like, Petunia, don't put your head in there or your paws in there. You're going to get crunched. I was using one of those leftover pieces of pattern paper and some of my alphabet dies, and I'm just going to punch out the word parade. So I had lined up the letters, and I do have to do another set of A's and an R as well, but these ones that I grabbed right here, I just put a strip of washi tape around them. That way I can pick it up and move it right onto another piece of paper. And it was a pretty fast process. That way I can cut it a couple of times and I don't have to keep messing with each individual letter. So I end up doing one letter from the pattern paper and then 3 letters from the white cardstock. And I'm going to stack them up and glue them together. And I found it pretty easy to just put some glue on each of the white pieces of cardstock and then stack. And then once I had all of them stuck together, then I could kind of shift and move and make sure that they were on straight. And then I put them underneath my block there just to hold it down while it is drying. Okay, so I went ahead and got that adhered to my page, and then the second part of the title is going to say tradition, because this is what we do every single year. And I am kind of on a kick right now of being really thrifty with my foam tape. So I'm just taking little strips of leftover white cardstock and stacking it up on the back side of that word tradition there. And that way it looks like it's popped up with foam tape, but it's actually just some little scrap pieces of paper. And I'm going to get that stuck down under there. So it says parade tradition. We do love this tradition, and it's hard to believe that it's right around the corner. It'll be here before we know it. Okay, so that stamp set was actually that I stamped tradition on, an old stamp of the month, and I still had it sitting on my desk. So I thought, maybe I will use the numbers that are on there, and I'll just find a little spot down here at the bottom of the page, and I'm going to stamp the year, because we do this every year, and I am kind of scrapbooking out of order right now. I want to make sure that I remember where this is going to need to go eventually into a book. So I just stamped 2021 down there at the bottom. And then there are a lot of really great little sentiments on the stamp set as well. And I tried a couple of them, holding over my page to see if it was something that I wanted to add on, but I decided not to use anything else. I'm just going to leave it at parade tradition. And except for my silver shimmer trim, this layout is really just about done. So I am going to put it back in the spot where I was originally thinking, only I'm going to move it to the outside of that red paper. And that way the fact that it's a little bit shorter than 3 inches, I think works. It just kind of looks like it's stepping down a little bit. All right, one of my favorite ways to get some shimmer trim on when you're sliding it underneath another piece of paper is to just stick it onto the flat end of this little paper crafting tool, and that way your other hand is kind of available to pick up the paper and let it slide in there, and that works out pretty well. So there, I think at this point I am done. Had it not been for the stitching, this would have been a really fast layout to put together, but that's okay. I like stitching on my layouts, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching. So again, this is for the mystery envelope challenge that I do each month with my friends. We all take turns sending out some different rules and pieces to use. So make sure you check out the description box down below to see the links for all the other ladies and what they did with their mystery envelope as well. I will also leave any links to products that are available right now in my shop. Thank you so much for being here today, and happy crafting. Bye.